Hey there, welcome back to Total Geek Live Baltimore Presents. I'm Baltimore, and today I'm bringing you House of X and Powers of 10, 5, and 6. These are the last two issues of each of these miniseries, and this is Jonathan Hickman's foray into the X universe. And boy, are we living in great times. It's really exciting, and I think it's setting things up for a great run for the next few years, and I'm here for it. I'm here for it, and so should you. So I really lucked out. I got these variants. You can see here for House of X number 5. They're super cool. It's a Savage Land X-Men. And then we have for the 6th issue, we have the villain variant. Whoa, look at all these villains. And I have to say, I'm just really excited about this. I think there's been so much setup and thought and really mapping out what the potential of the X-Men can be, where they were, what they are right now, and where they could be. And I think that's the great thing that Jonathan's really kind of done. He's really thought about the X-Men as a franchise and what they can do and what the future can be. And I think he's really brought some interesting concepts into it. So, you know, the 5th and 6th issues, the only little complaint that I'll have about them is it's a lot of recontextualization of original work in the 1st and 2nd issues of the book, and a little bit in the 5th one. So there's a lot of reused panels, and sometimes even completely reused pages that you see. And, you know, I was like, when you're paying this much for it, it's a little, you know, irksome. But if that's my only fault, I think he's still, you know, doing a great job. Because you are rethinking about this material and the meaning of it now that we have finally read it and what's the real story and what's going on. So I think that's really fascinating to think about in the grand scheme of things with these 6 issues each. I have to say he's kept it on track. There's never been a miss week, so that's great planning on Marvel's part. Thank you for that. Would have been kind of frustrating to kind of wait for things to keep going on this one. But so where we left off in 3 and 4, the X-Men were on a suicide mission to stop the Mother Mold, and they all died. All of them. Marvel Girl, Archangel, Monet, Husk, Wolverine, Nightcrawler, Jean, Cyclops, all of them dead. But they did kill the Mother Mold. They did drop it into the sun. And then so you're like, what the heck after this? What's going on? And then we get the reveal of the very beginning of the book where we had Xavier opening these pod people up on Krakoa and saying, "To me, my X-Men." And now we get a recontextualization of it, and we realize these are the X-Men that died in space. And you're like, how is this even possible? And then we get the explanation of the 5. And the 5 would be Goldballs, Tempest, Hope, Proteus, and Elixir. And each of them use their mutant powers in concert together to create the resurrection process that we see on Krakoa. And the big mask, the big Cerebro headpiece that Xavier has been wearing, he uses that to store every mutant's mind. Every week he uploads a copy of it, uploads and creates this entire database of mutants, so that should they die, they have the possibility and the ability to be resurrected. And it's really fascinating with all the work that went into it, the thought about it. And then, you know, in the infographics, Hickman goes into, you know, great detail about what it means, what they can do, and how the process actually works, which is really cool. It does make death a little less meaningful, even though he has a note in there from Xavier saying, even though I can get you back, it still doesn't make the hurt go away, which is a nice moment there, but it was still, you know, it still kind of cheapens the whole concept of death within the world. And so we'll see if they actually apply it to humans. It doesn't seem like they might, but we never know. We'll see. That's an interesting story point for later on. And then we see how the X-Men are greeted back as their rebirth in Krakoa, which was amazing. Storm is basically the mutant leader, and she's reintroducing them all to the world, to the Krakoa citizens. And you have these wonderful moments between her and Scott, and then one really great moment between her and Jean, which echoes back to when Jean and Storm first met after Jean was found alive and the X-Men were thought dead in Inferno. And what did they say to each other in that moment? They say, "Who are you? Are you the real Jean?" And Jean says, "I'm the only one that ever was." And now in this version, we have them saying basically the same, meaning. And it's that nice little touch that Hickman goes into the continuity and pulls from it, and it enriches the story. It doesn't weigh it down. It gives it more depth and layers and context, which you kind of really can appreciate. So kudos for that one. And so you see them all alive again, and it's a mutant celebration, and everyone is excited and happy to have them back. And it's mutants, they are what Hickman set out to be, a cultural class upon themselves. And it's very interesting to see this as dynamics go forward. What does this mean for the world? And we kind of see that with, the response to their statehood on Krakoa. And then we get a little more detail in the next issue about what it takes to make these work. We have Forge and Xavier working together to create the Cerebro system and everything, and the backups and so forth. And then we get, further information about how Emma became a part of this with the Hellfire Club. And that's pretty interesting to see her, Magneto, and Xavier talk about this, which was a really beautiful, scene that takes place. And they have a lot of history, the three of them together. Magneto and Emma Frost were on Genosha when the 16 million were killed. And, she's had her own students die before, multiple times. So it's really interesting to see her saying, "You think this is a good idea to put all the mutants on an island again? You, of all people, Magneto." And then she's persuaded to join them and to use the Hellfire Club as the exclusive source for the mutant gifts that they're going to be giving the humans, which is really fascinating. It'll lead into the Marauders. And that was really great. And then we get to see how the whole process works with Krakoa and their governing system. And it's really, really beautiful. I love the way that they approach it. They have a quiet council of 12 members. You have Xavier, Magneto, and Apocalypse on one arm. You have Mr. Sinister, Mystique, and Exodus on another arm. Then you have Sebastian Shaw, Emma Frost, and the Red King, who we find out is going to be Kitty Pryde. Interesting. And then we also have Storm, Jean, and Nightcrawler. So these are the people who make up the Quiet Council, along with Cypher and Krakoa, representing Krakoa. And it's really fascinating to see them all together because we get a sense of, who are the most important people here. Why are they on the councils? To keep the eye on them, like they are with Exodus and Mr. Sinister and Sebastian Shaw and Mystique and Apocalypse. It's a lot of villains, very villain heavy, even though we're not talking about heroes and villains anymore. We're talking about mutant caste system. So that's interesting to see that. And then we have the basically the war captains, which would be Cyclops, Gorgon, Bishop, and Magic. And I'm a little intrigued by the war captains, who they are, why they were picked. I think there's probably some that would have been better. But it does lead to interesting, like, what's Gorgon going to do? How is he going to be a war captain? So clearly we're going to have more stories with him. Magic being the war captain is kind of interesting because I've never really pegged her for a captain character. I'm surprised it's not Danny in that spot. But we'll see. I'm intrigued. And then we also get to see, in the last issue, we get to find out about Moira's mysterious sixth life. And it's a doozy. And it's really fascinating when you, again, put everything into context as to what you've read before and seen and understood about House of X and Powers of 10. And now we get the sixth life, and you're like, okay, this is why she went to just Magneto, and this is why she went to just Xavier, and this is why she went to just apocalypse. So we get to see these moments. You're like, she's trying to fix it. She's trying to make it work. And now we are all in agreement that we are in the 10th life, which is very fascinating to kind of going back again, because I read them all again, to trying to see like what it actually means for all of them. And then we get the mutants at large don't know Moira's alive. They still think she died way back in Dream's End. So Magneto and Xavier have been keeping the secret from everybody. So that's going to be kind of interesting to see how that plays out. What it actually means for, Krakoa moving forward, Dawn of X. So we'll see how that kind of manifests itself. And then we have a great, huge, wonderful mutant party, like celebration. And you get all these panels of wonderful interactions between characters you thought were dead, or just interactions between characters, and you're like, I'm living for it, I'm here for it, this is amazing, and yes, take my money. We get to see Banshee and his daughter Siren together, which is amazing. We get to see Siren playing off of Dazzler, which is great. We get to see Skin and Cinch, two mutants who were killed in Generation X, and they're alive again. We get to see Exodus telling stories to kids around a campfire with Sinister in the background, kind of mysterious and ominous. And we just get to see all these character interactions and burying the hatchets and moving forward and being happy and celebrating this moment. And it's just really wonderful, even though it doesn't last. We always lose. Which is interesting to kind of keep that in the background of this. But we have great panels between Jean and Emma. And while I'm personally not sold by it, I do think it's a wonderful way to kind of put it in the past and move forward. We'll see how things move in Dawn of X. But I'm not quite certain about it, but I think it's really fascinating. And then we have the 3 cardinal rules, the laws of Krakoa, that the Quiet Council have come up with and have decided these are the rules that are the most important. It's 1, make more mutants. And 2, murder no man. And 3, respect the sacred land. And they all come from the people in the Quiet Council that are pretty fascinating. Nightcrawler with make more humans, Cypher with respect the sacred land. And these ideals are lofty and they're reasonable, and they make sense within our current political cycle and animus, and it speaks to, I think, a community that is longing for that kind of recognition and acknowledgement and whole coming together. And then they have their first trial, which is Sabretooth, who has clearly not really listened to these laws. He's murdered men. And he is the first victim of the law, and he is not killed because resurrection process happens, but he is sentenced to being excommunicated from Krakoa in the black box area, and so he's thrown away and hidden. And this is, I'm sure, gonna come around and bite them all in the butt later on. But it's interesting to see how they put justice to use here on Krakoa. But that's it. These are House of X and Powers of 10, the 5th and 6th issues of it. And we are about to enter in Dawn of X. So we have all those titles coming at us in the next little bit. And I'm really excited about it. I think it's really wonderful. Jonathan Hickman, you have done great work here. Your artists are amazing, and they've done great work. Very lovely, very amazing work. And I can't wait for more. And I'm really finally excited about the X-Men again. And it makes me feel very hopeful for the future. So let me know what your favorite parts of the final 2 chapters of House of X and Power of 10 were. Like, subscribe, and comment below. And let me know what you think. And as always, it's all geek to us.